Bradford isn't the only OU quarterback coming back. Two more former Sooner QBs have resurfaced, including one who's not so welcome. I'm Mike Sherman, and this is the Press Row. Our guests today are Barry Trammell, who's working on a joke that starts off 3 Sooner quarterbacks were in a rowboat, and John Rohde, who is pondering CPR for what was once one of college basketball's best rivalries. John, let's start right there. Reviving Bedlam basketball. Bedlam 2009 approaches. Round 1 is Monday in Stillwater, which was once thought to be the best venue for this game. Is that still the case?
No, it's not. In fact, when Sutton had it going in the small Gallagher-Abba and in the large Gallagher-Abba, it was between Gallagher-Abba, Cameron, and Allen Fieldhouse. And Gallagher last night, 8,500. I see tickets available for Big Monday, and that's unfortunate. 5,000 people left early last night with 5 minutes left. By the time the game was decided, there was 3,500 people inside Gallagher. It's a sad sight. I'm not sure why. I mean, maybe it's Sutton holdouts, but Travis Ford is playing an exciting brand of basketball. They've had a couple of tough luck losses, but I don't see a sellout coming Monday for Big Monday.
That's shocking.
Obviously, the excitement for OSU basketball in general has fallen, but has Bedlam, the Bedlam rivalry, fallen? Now, I'm not saying I know one way or the other, but you think it's...
Well, you got two outsiders coaching the teams now. Nothing's wrong with that. But you used to have Eddie Sutton at his alma mater. You used to have Billy Tubbs, born in Tulsa. And when they were going at it, it was great. And so the coaches aren't the characters anymore. The teams aren't as good as they once were, at least up in Stillwater. So I think there's a lot of components that go into that thinking, Barry.
Well, to me, last year, the Bedlam in Stillwater showed that the rivalry on a competitive level had really fallen because the Sooners play without Blake Griffin and go in and win easy against the team that harbored NCAA tournament hopes. So, it is missing something. And you would think, somebody like Jeff Capel and Travis Ford, both big names in college basketball, young enough that everybody can remember when they played, both fiery guys. You'd think that the rivalry would have a chance to rekindle.
John, you saw the Cowboys in person last night, and you saw them on Saturday in Baylor. What's your impressions of what you've seen of them?
Things aren't going their way in many ways, and like Barry was saying before, they're in trouble now. They go to Nebraska on Saturday, and Nebraska, has got to be feeling good about how they played in Norman. Then they come back and they have Bedlam in the number 6, number 5 team in the country, and Blake Griffin, and Lord knows what he'll do to them. And it's a rugged start, Barry. They got an uphill climb.
Well, a week ago it was thought that, hey, they're in pretty good shape for the NCAA tournament. Right now, I'd say they're in pretty bad shape for the NCAA tournament. They're one down on the home road 1-loss deal, so they can't really stand another home loss, and they've got Texas and Oklahoma still to come. They got to find a way to win some on the road, and Nebraska is going to be a tough game because the Huskers are used to playing all these big teams, and smallest team in America, Nebraska, and Oklahoma State's going to come in not much bigger. Huskers are going to think that's just a great matchup.
And here's the deal: when you play freewheeling like they do, and the shots are falling, everybody likes each other. When you're freewheeling and the shots aren't falling, how do they compose themselves? Do they stay composed? Do people get angry at each other? I mean, there was a time there for the first 35 minutes. There was some motioning from players to each other that wasn't very positive. So it depends on how they can rebound from that kind of thing.
Okay, the Sooners are looking like the cream of the crop in the Big 12, sort of emerging as an overwhelming favorite to win the conference title, at least in some people's mind. But then on the Sooner juggernaut, there were some lights flashing on the dashboard last night. Norman and Barry, you were there. What happened? The Sooners struggled with the Huskers.
Well, I don't think Oklahoma was on top of its game emotionally in the first half. They seemed to settle for jump shots. Didn't get the ball into Blake Griffin a lot against the small Nebraska lineup. Second half, it looked like OU's defense stiffened up quite a bit. They posted up Blake a lot more, got him the ball in scoring position, and he was able to just make mincemeat out of Nebraska. It looked like a game all along to me, and proved to be true at the end. As Sooners just did enough to stay in it, and then put the accelerator down at the end. So sometimes that's the kind of games you have to win.
If that game's in Lincoln, do they lose?
If they play that way, probably so. Probably so.
Lincoln's no easy. They're 11-1 in Lincoln, and that's more bad news for OSU.
Last question about Bedlam basketball, which we're going to tackle Monday in a special main event looking at reviving the Bedlam rivalry. But could a spark be lit by what Jeff Capel said last year in Stillwater? He was filmed. ESPN followed him around as part of an inside story. They had special access. And after the game, after they won in the locker room, Capel said, let's get out of this hellhole. Is it something as small as that could breathe a little life into the excitement about this rivalry for folks in Stillwater?
I don't think so. I think it's got to be breathed. I think it finds its life in something a lot bigger, which is an OSU victory. If the Cowboys can win, all of a sudden, I think they'll storm the court. I think the students will storm the court, and I think everybody will get fired up, and basketball will sort of be, the rivalry will sort of be rekindled. The Sooners win again, particularly if they just do a workmanlike job like they did last year in Stillwater. I think that's just going to send the rivalry one peg down again. And this is a rivalry that has seen such better days. In the early part of this decade, when both teams were riding high, this was as good a rivalry as there was in America, and that includes North Carolina Duke.
I'll be honest with you, I hadn't even thought about that until you brought it up. I had forgotten totally about it. I'm curious how many OU fans make that trip north. There's going to be tickets available. Do they want to pay the price?
And the Cowboys, if they lose that game, they'll be 1-4 in the league. 9-7.
If they lose to Nebraska.
If they lose to Nebraska, and if they lose to OU on Monday, they would fall to 1-4, which would mean 9-7 looks a long ways off. Speaking of what looks a long ways off, how about the Thunder? Late night with Jeff Green in Oakland, California on Wednesday. Green banks home a game winner against Golden State. Now I also see Jenny Carlson's commentary coming to News OK, in which she says, keep Scott Brooks. Sing along in the chorus with me. Darnell Mayberry wrote about that in his Insider on Monday. Where do you guys land on this? Is it time for the Thunder? Are they playing well enough that it's time to start talking about keeping Scott Brooks permanently as Thunder coach?
I don't see any great reason to do it now. I don't know why you would. It's not like he needs a vote of confidence to get the players, attention or get the players motivated. Economically, Scott Brooks, I think, will be the coach next year, even if things weren't going so great. They're paying off a hefty contract to P.J. Carlesimo. The economy of the league, the economy of America, both a little bit shaky. You don't know exactly what will happen. The Thunder's in good shape, but you certainly don't want to go creating unnecessary expenses. You've got a coach that's obviously doing a good job. You might as well, ride him as long as you can. So I think no doubt he'll be the coach next year. But, I don't see any reason to play the cards until you have to.
I agree with Barry, and it's interesting. I know Barry thinks the change wouldn't have happened. If PJ were still here, they wouldn't be at 9 wins, and that's something, I guess we can assume, maybe not. But maybe going down, what are they, like 15 years difference between PJ and Brooks? Maybe the young guys could relate better to Scott Brooks, maybe not. Don't know. It's not that big a contract that Carlesimo had, was it? Was it only $1 million a year?
He's one of the lower paid.
That's a bargain.
Well, it's still $1 million. It's still $1 million.
You're not paying off Larry Brown. Let's just say
or
that.
the city of Seattle.
Yeah, but here's something also. I think sort of an interesting. I hadn't thought about it till you said this age deal, John. But you look at the NFL, you see a drastic trend toward younger coaches. With Raheem Morris at 32, and Mangini is 38 on his second job. Tomlin is 35 or 36.
Rex Ryan's a gray beard in his mid-40s.
That's right. So,
and the Broncos aren't sure if their coach is able to vote.
Yeah, and Josh McDaniels is 32 or 33. So very young trend in the NFL, and really haven't seen it to that regard in the NBA. But the NBA is the youngest league out there in terms of the age of the players. So that might be an interesting thing to keep an eye on, and I think there's probably something to that in terms of the gender gap, the age gap.
Okay. Also on Thunder front, Rick Bucher interviewed he's from ESPN. He's interviewed today in the Oklahoman by Darnell Mayberry, and Bucher loves him some Thunder. Goes on and on about what he thinks for the Thunder, including to say they're going to be a playoff team next year. Jeff Green and Kevin Durant are on their way to greatness. I mean, just the fearsome threesome of young players he loves. This is a big change for the worldwide leader because a month and a half ago, one of their staff members was comparing them to the worst team ever, saying they wouldn't get to 9 wins. They're at 9 wins now. Is Rick Bucher a little over the top on this?
I think so. I mean, I hope we have the playoffs in Oklahoma City next April. Heck, I hope they make it this year. I hope they go on a 30-game winning streak and we get a playoff this year.
It's one in a row right now.
But the truth of the matter is, the West still is pretty deep with 9 or 10 really solid teams. I don't see a team jumping from 20 wins or 22, whatever they end up with, into the 45, 48 range. Unless you add Kevin Garnett, that kind of thing doesn't happen. So let's just look for moderate steps. Become a competitive team next year, 30, 40 win range, playoffs the year after.
I think Bucher knew who he was talking to. He was talking to the Oklahoman. So maybe he's going to have a few more readers today thanks to what he said. I think he believed some of what he said. I don't believe that he really thinks they'll be in the playoffs next year.
The Thunder.
And I refuse to believe he's their favorite team right now.
That's right.
Cavaliers, Lakers. No, when's the Thunder play? I don't think so.
They are. Let me say this: they are fun to watch.
Oh, no doubt.
They're a fun team to watch.
When their effort is there.
And the people who haven't given the NBA a chance or down on the NBA. I used to not be a big believer until they came to town 3 years ago with the Hornets, but it's a fun product to watch, and these guys are fun. I mean, last night, 122 to 121, and first half was racehorse basketball, and second half was dramatic. And these guys, Durant, Westbrook, and Green, and some of the other guys, I mean, they're fun to watch.
He wants to know if Green meant to bank in the shot, and my answer is, who cares? I mean. Just say you did and pretend you did.
I just want the question. And apparently Green said he did mean, of course, what else is he going to say? Of course he meant to bank it in. But that's a long bank shot, 19, 20 feet bank shot.
It was pretty late. We'll need to get that in the newspaper tomorrow. Okay, Okay, Barry. On to OU football. 3 interesting stories about OU quarterbacks, past, present, have bubbled up this week. One says he always wanted to come back. Another is making an unlikely comeback. And then there's this guy who won't go away. Let's start with him first, Rhett Bomar. He's frequently hinted that there's more to this story of the scandal that drove him out of Norman, cost him his crown as Sooner quarterback. This week he's at the Senior Bowl trying to impress NFL scouts. Is this the kind of week where he tells the rest of the story, if indeed there is any?
No. I think that'd come after the draft. I think he's going to be pretty tight-lipped. Not say much, just try to be a good soldier till the draft, and then maybe after that he might talk, depending on the circumstance. But I think he's going to try to do all he can to alleviate the fears of potential NFL teams, that he's not a hothead, that he's not a knucklehead, that he's somebody you can sort of rely on. Going out and making headlines, even if the story is has validity and gets wide play, I'm not sure that's what NFL teams are looking for.
I don't know is Paul Harvey here? What is the rest of the story? Is he doesn't want all the blame? Is it there's more people involved, or they told me to do it? The devil made me do it? I don't know what his story is. And really, I know this, I don't care. I mean, it doesn't surprise me that the NFL's looking at him. He was a terrific prospect, and Barry's right. You just worry about the NFL making a good impression and saying all the right things.
Is this guy got a little Tony Romo in him? Can he be the next Tony Romo?
Can he have a turnover in 27 straight games?
Can he go to Cabo on his off week?
I think the answer to that is yes.
I don't know. I don't know. He's certainly a bigger prospect than Tony Romo was out of Eastern Illinois 5 years ago. So, he's got a shot. He's going to be I'd say he's probably going to be the 4th or 5th quarterback taken after Stafford and Sanchez and maybe Josh Freeman or somebody. He's going to go probably on the first day, 3rd round or so. He's going to have a chance. That's all you can ask for.
Can Jerry Jones resist?
Oh, yeah. I don't think Rhett Bomar's not a big enough name.
Oh, yeah. He's not going to fill a $1.3 billion stadium with Rhett Bomar.
But let me say this. That doesn't mean he will resist. He might draft him. The Cowboys hadn't drafted a quarterback since Eddie LeBaron in whatever year. So the Cowboys at some point need to start drafting a quarterback and trying to develop him. even if it's to replace Romo in 5 years, or to, if you figure out that Romo's not going to get the job done.
Okay, next OU quarterback. Having failed in attempts to beat out Jason White, Tommy Grady is back in Oklahoma. This time the quarterback he's trying to unseat, Robert Kent of the Oklahoma City Yard Dogs. Is Grady's comeback story compelling enough to move the needle for the Yard Dogs? John.
Well, is the AF2 now the AF1?
Yeah.
Is there no American Football League?
The AF1 has gone into hibernation.
Hey, well, I mean, I don't know. He could walk into this room right now. I wouldn't know who he is. It's been that long.
He's 6'7". So,
well, he'd be the tallest guy in the room. Okay, then I know who he is. But I think the Yard Dogs have their niche. I don't know how much a local draws them. I really don't. I think they just like arena football more so than who the quarterback is.
Tommy Grady is sort of it's somewhat captivating in that he came in, he's a 4-star recruit, came in big-time reputation, and like a lot of 4-star recruits with the Sooners, didn't make it. Why not?
Well, I mean, he had some serious competition. I mean, he had White originally, and then Bomar basically beat him out, and Bomar, is a very good talent. There are people that will tell you if Grady had stuck it out and had been, a senior in 07 or so,
he would have been
that Sam Bradford would have still beat him out. I don't necessarily think so, because Bob Stoops almost always goes with an experienced hand, at least initially. So, and he also likes guys who are not that mobile. I mean, Grady fits the perfect Stoops quarterback. So I think he would have had a chance to be the OU quarterback. Now, would he have kept the job? I don't have any idea. But I used to think that he didn't make very smart decisions. He went to Utah and couldn't even win the job there. Well, if you watch the Sugar Bowl, you sort of realize, hey, the guy that beat him out's pretty darn good. Knocked out Alabama. So he's a highly recruited guy. I think Huntington Beach, California, big-time prospect, just never was in the right place at the right time. I wish him well. I don't see him selling many tickets. Only the hardcore OU fans remember Tommy Grady, and none of them have particular calling for him. I mean, there's no great connection, so I don't see how he's going to sell a lot of Yard Dog tickets.
Okay, last comeback story. Kent Bradford told the Kansas City Star that Sam always wanted to come back for another year. For at least another year. What do you guys make, John, of that clause in the comment, at least another year?
Oh, that'd be 2 instead of 1?
Maybe.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe he did know all along that he wasn't coming. People are saying, well, then why did he milk it till the last minute? As far as I know, it was exactly 1 week after the title game. You had to pull the trigger. And that's not Sam's way. Hey, I wouldn't put anything past Sam Bradford. I wouldn't put anything past him.
That's a good point. Sam Bradford made his announcement 5 days after he returned, because they came home on Friday. Mm-hmm. He made the announcement on Wednesday. 5 days. So I don't see much different in what Kent Bradford told the Kansas City Star than what he told us the week before, which he told Jake Trotter. Sam pretty much has his mind made up, but he just wants to make sure he's got the right decision. I think it's the same thing, just worded differently. I think he probably did always want to come back, but you got to check it out. You got to see what your options are. You got to see what the pro people are going to give you an evaluation. Why would you not take it? You always listen. All these coaches that want him to stay, when the phone rings from another school, they all listen. So, I don't think it's really anything different than what we already knew.
Is it bad news if he comes back 2 years instead of 1? Does that mean next year won't be what he wanted it to be? Or that he was hurt? Maybe. That it wasn't that good?
Jason White brought up that possibility on the radio when he was interviewed about his comeback. He said, hey, listen, if he does have a disappointment, he's got another year to recover from it. It's a pretty great position to be in when you think about it. But last question on Brad.
Let me say this.
Yeah?
Quarterback in OU, pretty great position to be in. Forget everything else, other factors. Pretty good position to be in.
Right. Okay, but what does he have to work on? In that story, it said Sam knows he's got a lot of things for improvement. What would that improvement be? How would that show up for the Sooners? The guy threw, 40-some touchdown passes with hardly any interceptions. Quarterback, the greatest offensive point production in NCAA history. Where do you go from there?
Well, he can get bigger and stronger and able to take a hit better. Not that he got hit a lot, but in the NFL, the bigger you are, the better. He can work on his arm strength, although it's already acceptable and pretty good. and he can work on accuracy. He's incredibly accurate, but the great craftsmen keep working on their craft. So they weren't lying. He was going to go high in the draft. He was going to go very high in the draft. He's going to go in the upper half of the first round, whether it's 3rd or 15th, whatever it was. But he can always get a little bit better.
But does any of that show up for the Sooners? In other words, I know he can improve maybe his draft stock by getting stronger and working on footwork and some of those things. But how does he improve on what he did for the Sooners?
Well, I mean, if he just shows next year what he did last year, that's good enough. You can't criticize a guy for scrambling or taking a hit because he had to do neither. And I don't know, that Oklahoma State game, he showed he could move around pretty good and take a hit pretty good and those kind of things. So I think Barry's right. I think it's all the mental numbers, the measurables, as they say.
Now, the one thing, if you want to nitpick, he can always be a better decision maker. The slant pass at the end of the first half against Florida should have never been thrown. Throw it up in the crowd. But any quarterback, the greatest quarterback in the NFL, is going to make decisions he wants back. But he can still work on that, the quick decision making. So he'll be a better prospect a year from now than he is right now. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Whether that translates into a better draft position, you never know.
Thanks, guys. That's all for the Press Row, sponsored by Dodge. But you can stay with the best coverage team anywhere, every day at newsok.com and every morning in the Oklahoman.